And we are live. We are live. Welcome everyone to Empower and GrowHer TV. My name is Alisa J Green, and I'm your host today. Today is Tuesday, and I get super excited. I get amped up when it comes time for me to interview my next guest. You have no idea the process that I go through, to find these beautiful authors and coaches and entrepreneurs that are just doing it and telling their stories. And it's just like, it's a godsend. It really is. And it's a blessing to be able to connect to some of the most powerful women that I've met, throughout my entrepreneurial journey. So. Hey, this is what I want you to do first. I want you to share. Please share. We can see your comments, so please share. Share in the replay too. Yeah, let me make sure I put that here. And this is a fully authentic online TV series, Empower and GrowHer TV. And for those of you that don't know who I am, again, my name is Alisa J Green, and I'm here today with my special guest, Shirley T. Harris. Say hi, Shirley.
Hello.
And I have to read her bio, okay? And like everybody that knows me knows, and I just got finished telling Shirley this earlier, that, justice, because when it comes to the core of who you really are, this is just a piece of paper with words on it. What really counts is who you are in your heart and what you do, what you were put on this earth to do. So, Shirley T. Harris is a certified transformational life coach and substance abuse specialist committed to empowering women who live beneath their potential to be authentically happy and live a fulfilling life. For women who are stuck in the past and are dealing with unresolved childhood issues, Shirley helps them move with determination in the direction of their dreams and to recognize their spiritual worth. Shirley's multifaceted talents meet the needs of women dealing with life issues around managing toxic relationships with abusive adult children and others, low self-esteem, and healing from unresolved childhood issues. Her techniques teach women self-understanding, empowers them to take control of their lives, and they learn how to cut apron strings while defining their roles and involvement in toxic relationships. For years, she struggled to overcome self-limiting beliefs and the painful memories of a traumatic childhood that haunted her. Her book, entitled Conversations with the Little Girl Within, is a story of dealing with unresolved childhood issues. At the same time, the book is touching and informative. Conversations with the Little Girl Within is one woman's inspirational example of how you can overcome your suffering from your adverse childhood experiences, or with a renewed understanding of the relationships that affected you growing up, and rewrite the script for adulthood. And I am so ready. This book is going to be released the fall of 2017. So I don't want anybody to go anywhere, because I'm going to put that link in later on in the show, and we to some things, because we all have some childhood issues that we have not resolved. We all have issues that won't tend to, and it's time to talk about them today. That's why Shirley wrote this book. I love her for it. Shirley, how are you doing today?
I am absolutely wonderful, Alisa, and so blessed and so honored to be a guest on your show. I love what you're doing. I support your mission 100%. And let's do this. I am ready.
You are ready. Okay. So how did you come up with this title, Conversations with the Little Girl Within? Where did this come from? Because when I saw the title of the book, I said, holy smokes, this lady is talking to me.
That's interesting. And actually, the whole concept was interesting. The way the book evolved was interesting. I always knew that I wanted to write a book. I've been writing since I was in elementary school. Mm-hmm. I wrote a full play in the 5th grade. And just during my journaling, my morning meditations, 2 words came up: unresolved issues, and then childhood. And I had no idea what that was about. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I was dealing with some stuff, and I had an appointment to get a Reiki session with a friend, and that's the energy healing. And during we had our session, and I was telling her what I picked up with my girl is what came up in her spirit. And so during the conversation, she said, well, at the end of the Reiki session, she said, well, I think you need to have a conversation with that little girl and find out what it is that she's trying to reveal to you. And I'm thinking, this sounds like some wishy-washy stuff. I'm not into connecting the dead. All that stuff went through my head. But then, being on this spiritual journey, I learned to trust the process. And a lot of times things don't make sense to our human mind, but our spiritual being needs whatever that little tidbit is. So I just kind of put it in the back of my mind and said, well, whatever, if it's relevant, it'll come up again. Mm-hmm. And so when I started really thinking about the book, and the book practically wrote itself, and it just seemed natural that the title would be Conversations with a Little Girl Within. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of stuck with me. And I'm like, well, I guess that's what the book will be called.
Wow. And you know what? I like the title because it makes the connection, because, I always say that, there's a writer in me. And I think there's a writer in everyone. But outside mm-hmm. of the writer in us, there is a little girl in all of us. And mm-hmm. some of us have a tendency to tuck the little girl away. Mm-hmm. And then the little girl comes out, sometimes when she's not supposed to. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But if we listen to her, we have the conversation with her, we'll feel safe when she does come out. Mm-hmm. So that's important. I really love the title. Okay, so let's
I'd like to add that little kid shows up in so many different ways, and a lot of times we aren't even aware of it. We have, just like a little baby will have a temper tantrum when it doesn't get its way. So do we as an adult. If we don't get our way, we act out like little kids, and that's a little kid in us.
Yeah, that is
a lot.
Yeah, that is.
A lot of times when I was single and out there dating, one of the things, because they always say girls mature faster than boys do. Mm-hmm. And so when I was single and I was dating, and this was a while ago, folks, mm-hmm. I used to always distinguish, okay, am I dealing with a little boy here, or am I dealing with a man? Mm-hmm. Because you have, just like with women, you have adults, you have little kids walking around in adult bodies. Mm-hmm. And so when you're dealing with, well, in that case, in that situation, when I was dealing with a guy, I'm like, well, am I dealing with a little boy here, or am I dealing with a man? Because boys in men's bodies handle certain situations differently than a real man would. The whole conversation is as well. So we all have that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We all have that little in us. Some of us control it, and sometimes the kid controls us.
It's true. It's true. So let's talk about it. Okay. So how did you begin the process of going into checking for your unresolved issues? Like, how did they just come up? Was there a process? You said we act out and things like that. So how did you begin that process of the conversation, basically?
So essentially, it's how do you know if you have unresolved issues? Because a lot of people don't. And I wasn't aware, honestly, I was not aware that I had unresolved issues. And in my case, it was with my mother. I knew, like, at some point in my early adulthood, I was angry with her, and I held on to some of that. And when I became a Christian, I started working on the forgiveness stuff. It wasn't until I left home, I left New York and moved to California, that I realized, and that evolved by watching how other women interacted with their parents. And I just realized that, I was still harboring some ill feelings about how I was treated. but I never looked at it specifically as unresolved issues. It's just like everybody has some animosity toward their parents because of how they were raised or treated or whatever. You know, everybody thought they had mean parents, whether we got to worry about it or not.
It parents in the world because I couldn't do anything.
Right. My kids probably think I'm the meanest parent in the world right now. So they'll have some stories to tell, I'm sure. But, you know, how did I know I had issues? I really didn't until I started on my spiritual journey, because I was a devout Christian for a number of years. But it's like when I started making that evolution to becoming more awakened to the spiritual element of life, you know, it's like, you know how they say you have to start peeling the layers of your life, peeling like the layers of an onion. You're actually peeling the layers of your life. And we have all this stuff in our subconscious level, and we function quite well in our everyday lives as normal adults, but emotionally we're still haunted on a subconscious level. And a lot of times we just, you know, like the pressure cooker, we just keep stuffing it and stuffing it and stuffing it. But then when I started on this spiritual journey, my life started unfolding and stuff started unraveling. And I'm like, where is that coming from? I don't want to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And then like during one of my morning meditations, again, during my journaling session, unresolved issues kept coming up. And I'm like, oh, what is that about? I don't have any unresolved issues that I was consciously aware of. Mm-hmm. And the more I started exploring that, then things started coming up out of my subconscious. And I started feeling some kind of way about it. And I was like, wait a minute. You know, I thought I had dealt with all of that, because as a good Christian, we're taught to forgive. We're supposed to forgive. But I've learned through this process that forgiveness is a lot deeper than just saying, oh, I forgive you. And you heard the expression, a lot of people say, well, I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget. You know, that's error thinking. That's thinking. So I learned how to forgive during the process. And as these issues came up, I had to deal with it. Because I've seen so many women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even older than that, still talking about things that happened to them in their childhood. And we're talking 30, 40, 50 years ago that they never, ever dealt with, but they're still holding on to that animosity and feeling some kind of way about it. And I never wanted to be that person. You know, even before the unresolved issues come up, whenever I have a problem or something, I try to resolve it and get it over and done with. If it involves somebody else, if I've done you wrong, you did me wrong, let's sit down and talk about it and resolve it. Because I don't want stuff hanging over my head for years and years and years. And some people are like that, and that's okay for them.
Yeah.
And so when this stuff started coming up, a lot of it was with my mother. And it's like, well, I thought I dealt with that. But again, it's something still there, because when the memories came up, the emotions came back, and it was painful. And so that showed me that I really hadn't done the forgiveness work. It was more to forgiving than what I thought, than just saying so.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, you know, when it comes to forgiveness, we really don't understand the whole process. We really don't understand the whole process, and it takes a while. You really have to really dig deep in order to understand the process. And you know, when me and you first talked, we talked about, you know, forgiveness. I said that I believe that, you know, when you forgive someone, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation. You know, and I still believe that. But then at some point, there will be a conversation, you know, and I think that one of the most uncomfortable things sometimes when it comes to that whole process is that you have to have that conversation. And sometimes the person doesn't even know that they offended you in a way. But that whole forgiveness piece is just so powerful. And we don't always have the heart, you know, to go through the whole process.
Absolutely. It takes a very strong individual to do that. And I love that story that you shared with me a couple of weeks ago, that when we talked about your girlfriend. Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about that if it's not too personal?
Yes. No, I can share it because, you know, if people know, I don't mind. You know, I had a friend who she got mad at me, but she didn't just get mad at me. She got mad at a lot of people that were close to her. And I realized that. I started seeing it was a pattern. So she was pushing people away from her because she was dealing with an issue, and she had completely cut me off. And from there, I had completely cut her off. And I was all right with it, but I had forgiven her. And then another sister friend of ours came to me not too long ago and said that she had a message for me. And the message was that the sister forgave me. And I sent the message back and to tell her I had forgiven her a long, long time ago. So it was like water under the bridge. And lo and behold, I ran into her and we embraced each other. And it was just like we just picked up. We never even dug back into the conversation. We just picked up right where we left off at, and it was all good. She said to me, call me. I said, well, you got to answer the phone. And we both laughed, and that's what it was. But, I think as we get older, because I'm going to be honest with you, I was a grudge holder. Once you did something to me, I will completely cut you off like PSENG. Yes, because I, at the time, didn't have the patience and didn't have the energy to waste my time on nonsense. And to me, certain things are just complete nonsense. So that's how I was. And I still am like that, but less grudgy. If my spirit does not have the room for the nonsense, you're done. Just like that, but without the grudge. And I think that a lot of people, that's hard for them to do. It's either hot or cold.
But it's necessary though. And especially when you're evolving, you have to let go of some people, and we don't want it, and we don't have room for the nonsense.
Right.
And too many people bring the nonsense. Virtual space doing you really don't. There's no room for that nonsense. And people either respect that and come correct, come authentic, or you have to let them go.
Yeah,
and that's the bottom line. I wanted to make a comment though about Leona Bryant's statement, where she said she's learned, or she hasn't learned, to separate the adult from the little girl. You're both the same, and if you're recognizing that, then there's something there, some little girl issue that needs to be dealt with. Okay, so
go ahead.
Yeah. So, and how you find out, you just have to do the work. You have to meditate. You have to pray about it, and just pose questions to the universe. Like, okay, what is the little girl trying to tell me? What is it that I need to learn from her? Because whatever that issue is that little girl has, it's affecting you to some degree. And that's what you need to figure out what it is. And if you need to, give me a call and we can work on it. I'll work you through the process.
I think this is going to be another part too. Listen, everybody that I interview, I always say the same thing. I'm like, this has to be a part two. So we have to do a part two, but I want to ask you this question. Let me just check the time here. Okay, so we have good time. Okay. So because we talked about so much, and I normally take my notes.
The show started.
I can't wait for the book. I cannot wait for the book. So again, if you're here, don't go anywhere, or you can go to Shirley T. Harris's page to get the link to pre-order your book. I already pre-ordered my book. I can't wait to read it. I'm excited. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask, I think you already answered, but if you did, then just say that, and I'll just move on to my next question. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, how can we tell, or how do we know when we're stuck in the past? We didn't talk about that, did we? How can we tell?
No, we didn't. How do you know that you're stuck in the past? That's a good question, because you're always thinking about the past. You're always talking about the past. Okay, and you can't, and so many people are there and they can't move forward because they're too busy looking back. In the rear, I have oh God, I want to pull a book up now so I can read this passage that I have from a book about that. Because we can't move forward in life if we're continuing looking back at where we've been. And so when you're looking back, what is it that you're looking back to? What is it that you're longing for, missing, or because there's a story in the Bible, I guess, I don't know, who was Lot's wife or somebody, that story where she looked back, where God was moving Lot out of what I think it was Sodom and Gomorrah, and she looked back and turned into a pillar of stone. She looked back because she was regretting what she was leaving and thought she was giving up, going on to the unknown. And so a lot of times people they don't know what the future holds for them. So they're fearful. They don't know, all I know is this life that I've been living. And here you are telling me I have to adopt a new mentality, a new way of living. But where am I going? I leave this to go where? And then that's when you have to go within, because God is not, he's always going to take us to a higher level of evolution, and it's always going to be for our good. But we always have to let go of something that we're holding on to that's trying to keep us connected to the past. And that could be anything. That could be somebody that uses drugs. Okay, what are they trying to mask by using those drugs? What don't they want to look at in their life that they're afraid to deal with? Because drugs is an indication that there's something going on with you that you don't want to deal with. You're trying to mask some pain, some hurt, and usually, again, it could be some unresolved childhood issues. It could be a coping mechanism that people use because they're in toxic relationships. So looking back, why do we keep looking back? Because we don't want to look ahead. Because we don't know what's ahead of us. I don't know what's going to happen next week. I don't know what's going to happen next year. So I can't plan accordingly. I just know this is my life. This is what I've been doing. This is what I'm comfortable with. I got all my homies, my friends, my family and stuff back here. I don't want to let that go. So it's afraid to let go of things that we need to let go of. That's holding us back. Mm-hmm. And so, in that regard, when you're afraid, then you have to really dissect. We have to dissect our lives. We have to take inventory. And a lot of people don't want to do that because it's like, well, I'm fine the way that I am. And a lot of times that's egoic. That's the ego. Yeah. And when you say you're a Christian, when any type of religious profession that you make is going to require you to let go of the past and move forward into your new life and become that new creature, your authentic being. Because even when we talk about being authentic, that's a process.
It is.
That's a process. That's a mental shift in the way that you think about yourself, and then your whole perspective about your life in the world that you live in.
It really is.
I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, you did. So okay, so we have some people they're saying some things. Shauna Beeman, which is one of my good girlfriends, my sister friend. Much needed conversation. Brenda D. Brown. Hi, Brenda. So glad you tuned in. She said, "Hello, ladies."
Hello, ladies.
I know for a fact that a lot of women that are tuning in, this is a topic that needs to be discussed. And as we talked about earlier, a lot of women may not be aware. You hear me say this often. A lot of people don't know, but there is a few movements going on. There's a healing movement going on because, like you said, Shirley, the universe is in dire need of it. There's a sisterhood movement going on right now. Women are coming together in numbers stronger than ever. Okay. And then there is a self-care movement going on. And all of these movements that are going on is just really one movement. It's all love, and it's all connected to the universe with God. So let's talk about it again. I want to. You're listening to Shirley T. Harris today, ladies, the author of Conversations with the Little Girl Within. What's the second part of the book? A journey to forgiveness.
A journey of healing, forgiveness, and liberation from unresolved childhood issues. And that's what it's been. A publisher helped me put things into perspective so wonderfully. It was so amazing. It was just such a blessing. But it is because it was a journey of healing. And then once I healed, and the healing came, what you were talking about with the healing movement, that was because I decided to take care of myself by any means necessary. And I was old enough. My kids were grown. It's like, okay, I'm done with that role. Now it's time for me to take care of me and whatever that meant. And I didn't feel guilty about it. Well, I had to get over feeling like I was being selfish, because I'm taking time out for me. But I had to do it for me. Because, when you travel on an airline and something goes wrong, and when they do that little introduction, it's like, honey, put the airbag on your face first and then your kid, because you can't help that kid if you passed out. So you have to take care of yourself first.
You know,
and if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not equipped to help anybody else, not even our own families. Exactly. You know, not even our own kids. I mean, when I was in the role of mother, and I'd come home from work, you know, and these jobs can be very stressful and taxing on you. Mm-hmm. And I have like 3 or 4 little boys running around vying for my attention. And I had to make a rule. It's like when mommy comes home, she needs at least a half hour to herself of uninterrupted time so that I can unwind from that role as employee, businesswoman, or whatever, and get ready for my role as mom. So I would come home and I'd go into my room, close the door, get on my bed, relax, let my body relax, put on my meditative music, and do that for half an hour so I can relax and unwind and just take care of myself. And then I'd come out the room and deal with, you know, my mother stuff that I had to do.
Sometimes we don't even get to us. You know, we don't even get a chance to get to us. We just come in and we go straight into mommy mode. We go straight into, you know, what's going on in the house. Let me get dinner ready. Let me do this. Let me wash clothes. Let me do that. And you know, like you said, we don't even tend to ourselves, which I think is a sad state of affairs. But I started caring for myself. I've been on a self-care journey for ever since I've tapped into personal growth and development, or personal development and growth. You know, and I realized I wasn't caring for myself. I was putting the needs of others before mine. When I got a whiff of that, I said, "Oh hell no, oh no, I got." So I didn't care about being selfish. And I still don't care about being selfish. I've been asked to do things, and I have learned to say no.
Absolutely.
I have put myself in position at one point in my life where I was doing everything for everybody else and didn't have time to do anything for myself. So guess what?
And women tend to do that because we're nurturers. Yes. And so we feel like we have to take care of everybody, and we think, oh, these people need me. But what we're doing is enabling them, and that makes us feel good because we're doing something for somebody else, but we're drained in the process. And I hate it when people do things that they don't want to do and then complain about it. It's like, well, don't do it. Say no. And I can do that unapologetically now. One of the things that you said that I wanted to touch back on was that, you know, we come home, we go to work, we go come home from work, go home and go right into the mommy roles, and without debriefing from the day. And what that does, it sets up a dynamic of frustration, especially if you're working on one of them jobs where these people just getting on your last nerve, because you know how the work environment can be sometimes. It will really test your last nerve. But then when you bring that frustration home without the debriefing part, then women tend to take that. They're short with them. They don't have the patience. It's like, okay, I just got to get this cooking done. I don't have time to help you do your homework right now. Go sit down or go play or go watch TV. You know, that just creates that dynamic. And so I would admonish anybody, try it. You know, if you have that type of lifestyle, just try it. Take time for you and don't apologize for it. Just let your kids know this is mommy's time right now. Mommy's having a timeout. I'm going to sit in the corner.
The debriefing / decompression, stressing comes in as soon as you walk out of your job. You sit in your car for 5 minutes before you pull off. That's just get your mind right. Just take a deep breath. That's one of the things that I like to tell my clients and women in my groups. You know, just take a deep breath. Just relax. Sit in your car for 5 to 7 minutes. Turn the radio off. Just feel your spirit. Just let it just get it all out. Because, you know, working in any environment is a certain level of negativity. So it's important to just get that out of your spirit. And then you take a little drive home. You could drive home with the radio on or off. It's up to you. And when you get home, before you come in your house, decompress again. That is so important. Sometimes I sit in front of my house after work. It's hilarious. I sit in front of my house after work sometimes for like a half an hour, sometimes 40 minutes. And I'm either doing one or two things. I'm either in complete silence, listening to the radio, or I'm on the phone, you know, making a few phone calls. But just to have a regular conversation with someone that I love.
Absolutely.
My mother, it could be my man friend, it could be my sisters, it could be my, my sister friends. But just to have a conversation just about regular stuff, just to get things off my mind and prepare me to come in here and deal with what it is that I need to deal with. And I think that if women practice this more, it will be less stressful for them. Because like you said, you'll snap on people less, you'll react less, and you'll bring the calmness into your spirit, which is much needed. So Shirley,
and that's the most important thing. And that's the most important thing. And I started doing that actually on my last job because it was so stressful. And, with people talking all the time, I'm more of a quiet person, and so I started doing that. Like when I get off of work, I just sit in my car, I'd let the seat back, take some of that tension off of my back and my spine, and I would just sit there and just unwind and just do a little meditation or something like that to get me grounded before I even started driving, because that I can see how that would create a road rage situation too. If you leave in a tense work environment and then you're out in traffic dealing with these kooks, and then your fuse is short, their fuse is short, and then, it can escalate into something terrible.
Yes.
So yes, ladies, definitely take time to do that.
I want to ask you this. How do our unresolved experiences play a role in our personal growth and development?
How do our unresolved issues play a role in our development?
In our personal growth.
So many different ways. Because I think initially it's a lot of anger, suppressed anger. And so as kids, we don't really have a voice. So we have to pretty much put up with a lot of the stuff that we've dealt with. You can't talk back. A 5 or a 6 year old is not going to talk back or challenge their parents. Those are the authority figures in our lives. All that anger. And for some people, when they become adults, they act out. That's where you get the criminal elements and things like that. You have these kids that are looking for love, but they look in all the wrong places. They get it from the gang members and other outside sources. So it shows up in addictions. It shows up in stress in our lives as adults, and which definitely affects your health. Diabetes, drug addictions is one of the factors. A myriad of health issues is contributed to that as well. And if you go to the CDC's website, the CDC Center for Disease Control.gov, they have you can take a test to see to what degree the unresolved issues has impacted your life. Wow. And then they list all the stressors, and I can pull up my book if to get a little more specific. Yeah. But it definitely takes its toll, and not only from the physical level, but psychologically and emotionally also. Right. Because if you're growing up in an environment as a kid where you're always told you'll never be anything, I hate your guts. Here's a good example. I had one lady that I spoke to at like 6 or 7 years old. She overheard her mother talking to a friend, and she was telling a friend that she hated her daughter and she never wanted to have kids. And so can you imagine how that 6-year-old felt hearing her mother say that? Now this lady, and this was a couple of months ago, she's got to be in her 60s, maybe close to 70. She told me ever since she heard her mother say that, when she wakes up every day, she says, "Oh God, you mean I'm still here? I'm not dead?"
Wow.
And that's what she truly believes. She believes, no matter how hard I try to talk to this woman, she believes that she is unworthy of being loved and that she's supposed to be dead. And when she wakes up, she's surprised that she's still alive.
That is so
sad. And she's got such a her guards up that she can't even allow anyone close enough to even say I love you to her. And I tried that therapy. Well, I love you. I can't. You don't love me. What do you love about me? She got very hostile and angry about it. So she like needs psychological help to deal with that issue.
Yeah, that's, oh my
So,
goodness, that is so
so
hurtful to hear.
yeah. And then, again, imagine somebody growing up, a kid growing up, for instance, with me, my mother's telling me you never be anything, you'll never amount to anything. Her big thing was shut up. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. So subsequently, not conscious of it, but this, I guess, those seeds being planted so
Yes, ma'am.
deeply inside of me as an adult, I took on to self-sabotaging behavior. When I had my business and I was on the verge of success, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not supposed to have this. I'm not worthy of this. I'm not going to be anything. So then you start self-sabotaging your own efforts just to justify, well, see, she was right. I'm never going to be anything.
Yeah. Oh God, this is so. Woo, wait. I want to go back to not having a voice, because one thing I want to say about parents, and and we spoke about this too before, is the fact that they give us the best that they have with what they were given, but and as time go on, me as an adult, I wanted to tweak certain things about with my kids, not give them some of the things that my parents gave me. But one of the things that I really want to talk about is not having a voice, and how that kids were seen and not heard has an impact on you. It can either go left or right, not having a voice. Where you had to sit, you could never really voice how you felt. Whether it was right or wrong, your parents just did not want to hear that. That does have an effect on a lot of people. And I think that every single person on this universe has a voice. And I think that if we start to use our voices more, the world really would be a better place. You have all these different platforms where people have all these different messages, these powerful messages, and people are changing the world. But that is just a small amount of people compared to, the people, the population in the world that has the ability to really use their voice, but have been
Stigmatized.
poisoned and stigmatized
Yes.
with the
Yes.
things that kept carrying from your childhood. It's
Mm-hmm.
not heard. So just shut up and don't say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
And,
that's
and, and
one of
with
the
me,
hurtful
and
things you
with
can
me
do.
as an
Yeah.
adult, and with me as an adult, having all these aspirations for my life and what I wanted to do, I recognize at some point I'm going to have to start speaking up. I can't continue to be an introvert. So I read books, to try to build up my confidence. Because once you've been torn down like that, you have to build yourself back up. The Bible even talks about that. It says, build yourself up on your most holy faith. And so I had to find a way to do that. And one of the things that I did in my adult life is, and I used to call this my alter ego, is I just took a leap of faith, and I co-hosted a radio show with a couple of women, and on a KTYM radio station, a gospel radio station in Los Angeles. And I was scared to death. It's like, well, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, but let's give it a try and see. and preparing myself helped. But then after a couple of segments, I'm like, okay. And, the feedback, it's like, well, yeah, people really do want to hear what I said. And that boosted my confidence. And it gave me the confidence to want to take another step further. And then once I did, it's like, associate with that's going to help me build my speaking practices, like with Toastmasters was one of the organizations. So it's just taking those initiative and overcoming the fear of speaking up, because we've been so stigmatized and like nobody wants to hear what you have to say, and shut up.
Yeah. So, okay, so it's 8:38, and for those of you that are tuning in, we're here with Shirley T. Harris, and she's the author of Conversations with the Little Girl Within. And her story is about dealing with unresolved childhood experiences and issues and self-limiting beliefs, and how things that we've been programmed with, can really hurt us. And it's important to really get to what the real issue is in order to be the the rose or the flower that you are, that God created, that God created us all to be. So Shirley, okay, it's 8:40. So God, I had so many other questions. So where can we find you? Where can we find you first?
Where can you find me first? Well, of course, I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
And then I think, did we post the website is one way that they can reach me also on my website, which is, it's Shirley Harris, and that's SHIRLE Harris.wix.com/Shirley T Harris is my website. And then I'm on Facebook also. Gosh, I should know these, and I know you told me I need to do that bit thing. Or you can also email me. That I know the email address. The email address is steppingupmygame@aim.com.
Say it again.
Steppingupmygame. My game at aim.com.
Okay, stepping up my game at aim.com. I love that. So I put it in there. So okay, let's get down to some more business. I have a few more questions, and then it'll be time for us to go. So, all right. So we talked about your book. We talked about your journey. I know you have so much more on your plate. What do you believe your life's mission is?
That's a good question, Alicia. It took me a long time to figure that one out, as you can imagine. But as far as my coaching business and my coaching mission, I really believe that it's to empower women to examine their roles in toxic relationships and then deal with their unresolved issues, and then, and help, and by doing that, helping them to step up their game. And, it's my mission has always been, ever since I can remember, to follow divine guidance. And
divine guidance.
To cultivate a worthy mindset that empowers them to gap between their challenges and manifesting their dreams. God, I've always older women, I felt so bad for them, and at a young age, wish that I could at that point. And I think that kind of stuck with me somewhere in my sub.
Okay. So you're kind of breaking up, and I don't understand why. So I need for you to repeat what you just said.
Oh my. Last thing that.
Okay, say something else now.
Okay, what was the last thing? Okay, so I believe part of my mission also in life is, of course, to follow divine guidance, multiple healing, because to help them to cultivate a worthy mindset that empowers them and bridging the challenge and what dreams. And have so much potential, but we're so bogged down with a lot of the social ills that plague society that we can't see the forest for the trees.
Right.
And so what I try to do is to help women to understand, first and foremost, who they are as divine beings in God, in Christ, and then tapping in to that resource and that power to transform their lives so that they can ultimately live up to their expectations for themselves and, to become the women that God has destined them to be. Because we can get so bogged down with our story, feeling sorry for ourselves. And, I was talking to a young lady the other day, and she's been through a lot for such, to be at such a young age. But one of the things that I see with her, and we touched on that a little bit, is that she's stuck in the past. She keeps looking back in her past. Her whole conversation is based on what happened to her in the past. And I'm trying to get her to understand that, yes, that stuff happened to you, but that doesn't mean that's who you are. That's a circumstance that happens in your life, but that doesn't determine your future. We create the life that we want to have going forward.
Yes.
Okay, and in some cases, subconsciously, we create some of the situations that we put ourselves in. Okay, let's keep it real here.
Yeah, let's be real now. We attract some of the things by our
That's right. That's right.
Think about we subconsciously put in our head, yes, we do. That is a good point that you made. But you know what? The one thing that I like about, and I think that a lot of people don't know the difference between coaching and therapy. Therapy is looking back and trying to resolve, and coaching is moving forward. And I think that the two are very necessary.
Moving forward. And with the coaching thing, the coaching is bringing out what's already inside of you. And that's what a lot of people know, because they don't know, because when God created us, he made us whole and complete. Everything that we need to succeed in this life is already inside of us. But the world would like to keep us distracted and busy with all of these other social conditioning methods that they use. It's TV, it's the radio, it's the hip hop songs. And we spend all day long, like, okay, 12 waking hours a day. And if you spend 6 of those hours watching television, okay,
yes,
the other 6 doing you, feeding the egos, whatever, listening to derogatory stuff, that's not building you up. That's tearing you down. And then it's anesthetizing you and keeping you distracted. We have to be still. We have to be still. And God is in us. Okay. It's a little bit of God in each and every one of us. It's like a seed. The more we tune into it, the louder the voice is going to become. The more we follow the leading of the Spirit in our lives, the more our lives will begin to be transformed. I think you froze up.
Yes. Yeah, I did. I'm still here though.
Oh, you can still
hear me?
Okay. I love this technology. But I mean, does that
I'm frozen. No, it makes a lot. Can you hear me, Shirley?
Yes, I can hear you now.
No, it makes a lot of sense. That's how come it's important to watch what you program your spirit with when it comes to what you ingest, from the radio, from wherever, even your conversations, when you got when things are going on around you, you got to watch what you take in. You're home.
And I think that's the hardest part for some people, because we are creatures of habit. Mm-hmm. So if you're used to getting up every morning, the first thing you do when you get out of bed is turn on the eyewitness news or the constantly negative news channel.
Put the TV on.
Yeah, put the TV on and listen to all that negativity. What's that doing to your spirit? That's vexing your spirit.
Yes, it is.
Okay, you're angry. I don't need to know who got killed today.
Oh,
I mean, how is that benefiting my spiritual development? And that's what we really have to focus on. I'm serious. We really have to focus on that as human beings. And then once we do tap into that, you'll see magnificent changes in this world, really. But like you were saying initially, the healing has to start with us. We have to take care of ourselves and get serious about our lives and do whatever it takes to conform to the spiritual essence of who we are. We are more than just what we see in the mirror, because underneath all of that is our etheric being, which is the spiritual connection that we have to God. And if we're not planting that, watering that plant, it's not going to grow. I mean, it's just there lying dormant until we finally awake to who we are on a spiritual level. So it's not all about the physical thing that we see. And unfortunately, too many people are wrapped up into the physical world, and that's all that they know. And they don't want to accept anything outside of that is foreign to them.
Yeah.
And that was one of the problems that a big concern that I had when I was in church, when I was a Christian, because it's like the only thing that they talked about, of course, was the Bible, which is my foundation. I'm not knocking that, but it's like everything that you read had to be something Christian related. But any intelligent person knows that there are so many more worldviews and religious philosophies that are just as relevant as Christianity. And when I started getting on the spiritual living path, that was more liberating for me than all the years that I spent in church. Because to me, all the years that I spent in church kept me broke, busted, disgusted. I had more problems, you know, and then they're like, if you ain't got no problems, then you must not be doing something right if the devil ain't messing with you. And, you know, it's like, so you have to create something so that you can feel like you're a good Christian. It's like, it didn't make sense. Ooh. But when I was doing my radio show, and, you know, I just love it. When I was doing my radio show, I had people wanting to be on the show. I had authors, and they were all talking about this spiritual living, this metaphysical philosophy, these new thoughts, but they all seemed so peaceful. They all seemed so genuinely joyous and authentic.
That's because they were
about it. And that was so different. And that was so different than what I was used to as a Christian. And I had to really pay attention to that. I'm like, okay, God, you bringing all these people here. You know, what's up? That's the relationship I have with God. I keep it real with God. Okay, God, what's going on here? What do I need to know? You know, that's my prayer. And that's a constant prayer all day long. So I don't have to set aside a certain moment, except for when I do my meditations and stuff. But I don't have to wait to Sunday to pray. I don't have to wait to go to Bible study on Wednesday to pray. I'm praying and talking to God. I'm having a conversation with God all the time.
It's so important. And I think that the more we connect with our God, whoever our God may be, the more we connect, the more spiritually grounded we get, and that is so important. That's how you make it through life. You know, it's just to be connected. Period.
Right, and then that's the guidance, because He guides us to where we're supposed to be. Because God knows He's got the grand scheme of things, and if we just tune in, it's like a GPS. You know, it's our internal GPS system. You know, we want to go to success. And so we're going to go to success, but we got to also realize that the road's going to be rocky. It's going to be some twists and turns along the way, and it's going to be a roller coaster ride. But as long as you stick with it and don't quit, don't faint, don't give up, and don't turn back, then you're going to eventually reach your destination. And sometimes we make it harder than it has to be.
We're spoiled though, Shirley. You know, we don't want to do all that work. You know, we're spoiled. And we think that things are supposed to come to us easy. We don't expect not a bump or bruise or a roadblock. Okay, we just got disconnected. So I'm here live with Shirley T. Harris, and she is the author of Conversations with the Little Girl from Within. And she's back now. So, okay, Shirley, so now it's 8:53. I
want to talk more about the book. We haven't really gotten.
That's what. Okay. So
this is definitely going to be a part two.
This is the part two. No,
I have to say. Okay, when I first started writing the book, I'm like, do I want to really talk about that? But one of the things that I'm learning, and I got this through April too, is about being transparent. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes we want to hold on to our stuff because we don't want nobody to know what we're going through. But what I realize is everybody's going through something.
Yes.
Okay.
But see, we're selfish though. We don't even want to share because we're so busy hiding in shame and guilt and fear that we don't even want to share our story. And you know, a lot of people that know me know that I say this. Everyone has a story, but especially every woman has a story. And it's not how you tell it; it's how you live it and how you give your story. So, you know, when you share your story, you know, it's nothing to be embarrassed about because you're not stuck in that story. You know, you're not stuck in it. So it's powerful. It's empowering to share.
It really is. It is.
What happens is you free yourself, and then you help liberate and free somebody else. that's the importance of sharing your story. So many women that share domestic violence stories, that share, you know, stories of divorce, stories of a love story, you know, stories of adversities and tragedies and all these different stories. But within those people, something happened to them. They had the desire to get free, and they had the to share the story, the courage to share the story, and then they had the audacity to reach out their hand and say, "Here, this is what happened to me." Well, for people to say, "Girl, that happened to you. That happened to me too." I'm so glad I heard that story. Now I can tell my story, and that's.
I'm going through this right now, and this is helping me to see that I can overcome as well.
Right.
Because when I started writing the book, I was a little concerned because I'm like, well, what are my sisters going to think? What are my siblings going to think? And I don't think I would have had the courage to write this book if my parents were still alive. But the book isn't about bashing my parents for how they treated me. I do, like, the first 2 or 3 chapters in the book do talk about some adverse childhood experiences that I had, in addition to some bizarre childhood experiences that I had. And then the other part of, like, maybe 3 or 4 more chapters is about, you know, how I'm reasoning, how I'm justifying, how I'm rectifying the answers that I'm putting, the questions that I'm putting out to the universe. And it's more about what God was showing me in the midst of it. And it's like, your life is more than just what you see and what you're living right now. And we had talked about something earlier, but it brought me to the point that how do we know? But I wrote down, our parents were just vessels that birthed us into the world. So we needed some element of whatever they had to make us who we are. And so their job was pretty much done once they raised us.
Yes.
And so however they did it is how they did it. But what we got out of it is what we needed to survive in the world today. And so when I came to the realization of that point during this whole process of writing this book, then I understood that my parents were just a couple of generations out of slavery. I understood that they had issues that they were dealing with. However, their struggle was to survive. They had to survive during those times in the 30s and 40s and the 50s and the 60s when, you know, they weren't as liberated as we are today. And so they were frustrated. But like you had talked about earlier, they couldn't express themselves. You know, who was going to listen?
Something happened to me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back. Okay, Shirley.
So once I understood their history, especially my mother's history, and then thinking, you know, what was it like for her as a woman, you know, coming up to during that time, still dealing with her issues and having to raise 6 kids and then deal with an alcoholic husband, you know? And then I learned after she transitioned, her sister told me that one of the reasons she was beating me so much was because her sister used to whoop her all the time. So that was a generational cycle that was being perpetuated, you know, onto me. And so I talk about that a little bit, but I came to the realization and the understanding that, yeah, they were doing the best that they could, like you alluded to earlier, with the knowledge and the information that they had. You know, they weren't intellectually minded. They weren't educated. You know, if anything, they may have had a high school education at the most. And so I was talking to my brother about some of the content in the book, and one of the things that he said I thought was really profound was that since they didn't have the education, they didn't know how to sit us down to explain why we shouldn't do this or why we shouldn't do that. All they knew is, I said don't do it, and that's it. And if you did it, then you got your butt whooped. If you questioned them about it, then you got your butt whooped. And I was that kid. I wanted to know why. I was inquisitive. Although I was never disrespectful to them, I was inquisitive. I wanted to know why. And my son is just like that. He is so much like me in that regard.
It took for me to be, how old was I when I realized that was one of my issues? I think I might have been like almost 30 when I realized that the reason why I was so rebellious and was so against what my parents told me not to do was because I needed to understand why not to do it. That's how my mind works. So I can't, like, I learn in different ways. I have to hear it, see it, read it, write it. Like, that's how I learn. So I needed to hear at a young age why I couldn't do A, B, C, and D. And that's how I kept knocking my head up against the wall. Some of my lessons came hard. I run right into the wall, boom, hit my head, and then just keep doing it until I was like, oh, okay, it's a wall.
Literally the school of hard knocks, huh?
Yeah. So I think that once we have a clear understanding, or once we start to understand, tap into that and start to understand these different things, then that's when the road gets a little smoother.
It smooths out, definitely. And so one of the other things that I'm hoping that the readers take away from the book is, if your parents are still alive and if you recognize that you have some issues, talk to them, because we deserve to get the answers. I really believe that we deserve to get the answers that we need so that we can get the healing that we need so that we can move forward in life. And, just talk to your parents if you can. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of resistance because a lot of times the parents don't want to talk about that stuff. But we have to find a way to gently let them know that it's important. And I mean, if you have to broach the subject a little bit at a time, do that. I didn't get that opportunity with my mother because she put so much fear in me, even as an adult, until she made her transition. I was always afraid to speak my authentic voice to my mother because she was always so antagonistic and against everything. And and then I always thought that I'd have time to do it. I just never felt that that any particular moment was the right time to do it with her. But I interviewed my sister in the book also. And I mean, her testimony, her chapter is, every time I read it, I just cry.
Oh,
I cry. She put the exclamation point to this dealing with the unresolved issues. And her story is so compelling. And one of the things that I love about my sister is that she has a woman's heart. And so to hear her share the things that she shared about my mother, which I never, ever knew, it just brought me to tears. I mean, after I interviewed her, I cried for about an hour, and I wished so badly that I was in California so I can just give her a hug and just let her know that I love her. Yeah. She said some pretty things in the book.
Wow. Shirley. Okay, so I want to ask you two more questions, and then we're going to close out. We have to do a part two. You have to come back.
Definitely.
This is just a lot. This is a lot, and I'm so grateful and thankful that we crossed paths, and I had the opportunity to connect with you in the way that I have, and we've had a few conversations, and they've been very, very good. And I know that this book is going to change lives. I know it's going to change lives. We had a lot of people on here, people watching, people jump on and off, the internet and everything, the connection. But let me tell you, this is so powerful and it's so needed. And I just love and appreciate you for you sharing, your story. I want to ask you two questions, but I think you answered one. Okay, so what do you want your readers to take away from this book?
More importantly, as painful as it may be, in order for you to be set free from your pain, from the trauma of your painful past, I mean, you have to deal with it. And that's what I tried to project throughout the book, that everything that I went through, I had to deal with it. I had to stop and face it and deal with it. And yes, it was indeed painful. And also for the parents, more than anything now, to understand that, what goes on in that household behind closed doors, those kids are learning vicariously through that environment.
Yes.
If they see you gossiping on the telephone, talking about such and such person all the time, then they think that's okay. When you tell such and such a person, I'm not home, and you're home, you're teaching that child to lie. So the parents need to be mindful about what's going on in the environment and how they treat their kids. You know, it just really vexes my spirit when I hear women cursing at little kids. Oh, you little piece of, you look just like your cotton picking father. You know, and I have to say something. I just can't sit there and then watch them berate this innocent child. That child didn't ask to be born. And so we have to be mindful. We have to take our roles as parents very seriously. Yeah, so I hope by any parents reading the book that they understand that the implication of my actions right now, the way I'm treating this child, is going to affect that child 20 years and 30 years down the line. And you know that show, Ayanna Vassant's show, Fix My Life?
Yeah.
That's exactly what she's dealing with.
Yeah.
All those people are talking about childhood issues. They have a problem with the way their parents raised them. And now that they're adults, they're able to verbalize it. Far be it in a very negative way. It gets very hostile and very ugly. A lot of times the parents don't want to talk about it. They feel that they're being attacked or whatever. But I mean, as kids, we deserve to get the answers that we need. And especially if it's been an abusive situation, you know, if it's at all possible. You know, my parents are gone. So, you know, that's a done deal. You know, I'm glad when I interviewed my sister, she said that she had the opportunity to ask my mother some questions. I'm like, you did? How did that go? You know, if I tried, she'd probably bite my head off or something. But she did. She and wondered, and I wrote about this in my book, and it was pretty profound. And I won't go into all of it right now. But for her, what she needed, what her soul needed to know from her mother was, "Mommy, do you love me?"
Oh my God.
And my mother never answered her specifically. Her answer was, "I love all of my kids." But my sister kept, "Mommy, but do you love me?" She needed to hear her mother say, "Yes, my daughter, I love you." Gosh, how many parents today tell their kids genuinely, "I love you, sweetie. I love you for who you are. I love you regardless." Kids don't get that. That's why you have all these juvenile. I worked at a school for at-risk kids. All these kids want is to know that somebody cares for them, genuinely cares for them.
That's why they're making mistakes, because they don't feel the love that they need and deserve. Yeah, they don't. Oh God, Shirley.
I know.
One more question. Oh my God. Let me see what time it is. It was 9:07. Okay. This is the second time I went over the way that I did. Okay, one more question.
Okay.
So it's your last day on earth, and you only have one message to deliver in order to save millions of people. What would that message be?
Oh God, that's a good question. That's profound. You have to give me a moment to think that one over.
My favorite.
Love. It's got to be love. Love yourself, love your neighbors, just love, agape love. Love one another, love each other. Definitely. It's got to be love, and just live a life of joy and peace and love.
Yeah. Oh God, Shirley. Listen. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. I thank you so much for being.
It's been an honor. It's been an honor. It really has been. I've enjoyed all of our conversations up to this point. And I hope they continue.
They will. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. I love you so much, and I thank you so much for just being who you are, and, you know, being open-hearted with, you know, your story, and just showing love and just shining bright and helping other women do the same. I really, really appreciate you, and thank you so much. You got
all you do as well.
It was people on here, they were just saying stuff. Okay, and Amira,
I love that name, Amira.
And Brenda and Liana, all of these people.
Well, we're going to definitely get together and do it again, and I can see us doing some other things as well on a larger scale too.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, definitely, because it's definitely needed. We have to have these real conversations, because you hear all this stuff about making money and, you know, being successful, but if you're not doing the healing, if you're not doing the sisterhood and the self-care, none of that stuff really matters. You know, this is what's real. You know, it's changing who we are so that we can spread that out and help other people do the same, because there's so many people out there hurting. I mean, even with money. I know millionaires that are alcoholics that are still suffering from past issues and some even traumatic childhood experiences, and they mask it into alcohol. So it's definitely a conversation that's needed, you know, and it's authentic and it's dealing with real life issues. And that's how people's lives are going to be changed. You can have all the money in the world and still be miserable.
Yes, yes. Okay, Shirley, so we're going to close out, but before we close out, tell everybody where they can find you one more time. You're on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook. I'm not sure what the Facebook, I got to pull up my boilerplate. I don't even know what the Facebook.
Shirley T. Harris.
Yeah, on Facebook. I don't know what all the numbers are on Facebook. And then again, my website, the best way to reach me right now is either on my website and
put it there.
That's in the chat room. And then also email me at steppingupmygame@aim.com. And if someone needs to talk right away, they can definitely call me. My number is 919-446-1712.
Say it again.
Namaste. The God in me honors the God in you, and all the women who tuned in today. You know, this is the sisterhood. This is how it starts. We start out small, one step at a time. I heard this. I saw this quote today, actually. I was in an office. It was a Martin Luther King quote. And I'll end with this. I don't want to go over much more time. But it's faith is taking the first step, even though you don't see the whole staircase.
Yes. Yeah.
So we don't always have to see the big picture. As long as we just take that step in the right direction as Spirit leads us, we'll get there eventually.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I'm closing out now, Shirley. My name is.
All right, man.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Oh, we're going to do a part 2. We're going to do a part 2.
Absolutely.
You know what, Shirley? I'm going to give you a call sometime between tomorrow and Friday, because I want to set something up to do something in December. I'll share that with you, you know, sometime this week. And again,
okay.
I appreciate you. I love you. My name is Alisa J, and this is Power and GrowHer TV. And I am closing out for tonight. And I look forward to my next interview on Tuesday. Shirley, I will chat with you later, my love.
My love, take care. Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Okay.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.